Hey everybody, welcome to Unmasked. My name is Caris Snyder. So glad to have you here today. As we get on this show every week, we want to talk about real hurts, real struggles, but we want to make sure that we're offering you real hope and letting you know that you're not alone. So if this is your first time to join us, we're so glad to have you. And if you've been with us over the last few months, we're so thankful for your support and thankful that you come back each week. If you are looking for Unmasked or any of the other Mike Holman TV shows, you can find us on Spectrum 180, on the Roku. You can find us on Facebook Live, and all the podcast platforms. We're out there. You can do a search. We have been putting out a lot of great content for you guys, so make sure that you are following along somewhere. And also, if you want to keep up with me, you can find me on my website at carissnyder.com. So last week, I let you guys know that May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I'm sure you've seen a lot of information and posts and things out there about your mental health. And last week we talked specifically about suicide and how it is one of the top 10 leading causes of death among adults. It is the number 2 leading cause of death for those ages just 10 to 34. So what we're wanting to do over these next few episodes is really take the statistic out of it and make it more real, make it more human, because maybe you are sitting there and you're watching this about mental health and you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with depression, and oftentimes when you hear those numbers, you don't want to be just a number. You want it to be a person. And so what I want to do for you over the next couple of weeks is take the numbers out of it and just share a personal story with you. And the personal story, the personal mental health journey that I want to share with you guys is my own. I am a survivor and overcomer of anxiety and depression. And so many times when we hear about depression or we hear about anxiety, we see this stigma. What we see and this picture in our mind is someone that we see on the movies who is so consumed with certain mental health disorders or depression that they are in a mental health hospital. We see in the movies that it is portrayed as someone who is on drugs or alcohol or other addictions, or they're very violent people. So when we hear about mental health, we put up this boundary, put up this wall that it's someone who is not safe, that it's not someone like us, when in reality, the majority of people who battle some sort of mental health disorder, they're normal, everyday people, just like you, just like me. Again, I was one. Depression, anxiety, it is no respecter of person. It will come after the stay-at-home mom. It'll come after the business entrepreneur. It'll come after the pastor, the worship leader, the grandmother, the millionaire, and the homeless. It'll come after your children, your teenagers, and your college students, those who are very successful and those who are not. It's no respecter of person. Depression and anxiety will come after whoever it can get, and it almost took my life in 2011. Everything in my life seemed and looked as it was just perfect and just right on the outside. My daughter at the time was 2 years old. I had a successful in-home business that I was running. My husband had a successful mortgage business that he was running, and our dream of leading worship together within our home church had come to pass, and we were leading worship together every week, and everything seemed and appeared great and wonderful on the outside. But on the inside, I was crumbling. But I was a master of the mask. And I was terrified to let anyone into my struggle. And maybe you're there today. Maybe you are terrified for the same reasons that I was. I was scared that if I let anyone into my struggle, if they knew that I was having these weird feelings in my chest where my heart would just race and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I felt like I was in a fog. If I let them into that, if I let them into the paralyzing fear that I would feel out of random places, just driving to pick my daughter up at preschool or sitting on my couch watching TV, if I let them into that, they might reject me or turn their back on me or make fun of me. Because surely, in my mind, no one else was dealing with what I was dealing with. There was no way. And also, before I began to deal with anxiety, I was one of those people who did not think anxiety nor depression were real. And I'm sure you have some of those in your life as well. When people would come to me for encouragement or advice or prayer as they were dealing with anxiety and depression, I did not answer them with the compassion of Jesus. My answer was not full of compassion. It was full more of, getting onto them, degrading them, dismissing their feelings. It would be more of, you just need to work harder. You need to try more. You need to pray more. You need to read your Bible more. And the one that I would always end with would be, you just need to suck it up, Buttercup. Cold and heartless. And I want to take a moment and say to you, if you've heard those words, I'm so sorry. If I said those words to you, if you're listening and I said those words to you, I'm so sorry. I had no idea the battle that waged war in your mind every single day and the victory that it was for you to just get up out of your bed and brush your teeth and function until I was in that battle myself. So I had that fear of rejection, that fear that people would respond to me the way that I responded to them. And I can remember one day sitting on my couch. It was a beige couch in my living room. My husband was at work. My daughter was in her playroom playing. And I had one of the most severe anxiety attacks that I can remember ever having in my life. My heart, I could see it beating out of my chest, and I thought I was having a heart attack. So I called my mom. My mom told me, you're having an anxiety attack. Go to the doctor. And so I didn't argue with my mom. I'm sure many of you don't argue with your mom either. I went to the doctor. And I had my daughter with me, and she's crying, thinking something bad is happening to her mommy. I'm crying because I'm thinking I'm a horrible mommy. And now I'm thinking I'm a burden to my daughter. I'm a burden to my husband. I'm a burden to these nurses. And I began to fall into depression, thinking words like, you are worthless, hopeless, useless, purposeless. That's where depression wants you. It wants you to feel that you have no purpose, you have nothing to offer, and that everyone around you would be better off if you just left this world. And that's where I began to go. That's where I began to fall. So the doctor came in, had checked the results of my EKG, and he said, Miss Snyder, your heart is perfectly healthy. You are having an anxiety attack, and you need to be on medication. And I looked at that doctor and said, no, I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. Not the right thing to say to a doctor, right? But that's what I told him. And I said, I'm good. I'm fine. I was in denial. I wasn't ready to admit that I needed help, that I was struggling, that I was fighting for my life. So I went home and I told my husband, I was like, it's okay. I'm good. I just will do things differently and it'll be fine. And I was fine for a couple of days. But now that I hadn't dealt with the anxiety and I began to push it down further and further, that anxiety transformed into depression as well. And those less than thoughts became not like whispers, but now they became more like loud echoes, just going over and over again in my head on repeat, smiling on the outside, but literally dying on the inside. I felt like I was a failure, that I was just such a burden to my family, because you see, even when I went to have that EKG done on my heart for anxiety, I had also, because I was trying so hard to numb the pain, to numb the anxiety and depression, some use drugs, alcohol, media, social media, pornography, relationships, but I used exercise to numb that pain, and I also tried to starve that pain by not eating. So I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day, drinking 4 to 5 gallons of water a day, working out 1 to 2 hours every single day, with a weight I had no business lifting. And not only did that doctor tell me, hey, you're struggling with anxiety, but you've also torn that entire chest cavity wall muscle, and you cannot lift anything, not even a Walmart bag, for 6 months. So that played right into the hands of depression, because he took that purpose in my mind. He took my purpose away of being a mom. My business that I was doing was a business with bags and purses. So I would go to other people's houses and carry those things. And so now he's telling me for 6 months I can't do that. So he's telling me, you can't be a mom, you can't be a businesswoman, you can't be anything. That's what I heard in my mind. Now, is that what he told me? No, but that's what depression does. It misconstrues the truth, and it makes you hear something that sounds very real, but in fact, it's not. It's not real at all, but it feels and appears very real to you, and you're in that pit. And that's where I was. So because I couldn't lift, I couldn't do anything, others around me, of course, they reached in to help me, but they looked like they could do it so much better than me, so much easier than me. So I began to fall even deeper into that hole. Eating less, not wanting to get up out of bed, barely sleeping at night, struggling with those thoughts going back and forth in my mind. It was like a ping pong ball going back and forth of, you are worthless. Well, why are you not trusting God anymore? You are useless. Well, why are you not getting up out of bed to do something? You are purposeless. Why? Why are you doubting? Why are you here? And it would go back and forth and back and forth. And I was struggling, and I was fighting, and I could barely hold my head up anymore. Well, one day in the middle of all of this, we found out I was pregnant. I was almost 100 pounds, barely eating, barely functioning, and there is this little life inside of me. And so we go to the doctor, and we begin to talk to the doctor, and my doctor, she looked at me, and she was so gentle and kind. She did not get on to me. She did not degrade me. She did not look at me with eyes of rejection. Instead, she looked at me with eyes of concern and love. And she said to me, Caris, it doesn't matter to me what you eat. If you eat donuts, but for the sake of this baby, you have got to eat. And so I couldn't eat for myself because I was so just gripped with fear and dread and despair. But that mama bear instinct kicked in inside of me. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And there are many things that I won't do for myself, but I will fight for my kids, or I'll fight for kids, for anybody's kids. And so for the sake of that baby, I was willing to eat donuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I did. I ate a lot of donuts, and I still love donuts to this day. So in the amount of time, this was about 8 weeks, I had gained 6 pounds, which was huge. That was huge for me. But also in that 8-week time span, I lost the baby. And so then that was rock bottom for me. And I was just beating myself up. You killed this baby. Look what you did. See, you're even a burden to this little life. I was broken. And in the middle of all of that, I heard 2 questions. You can look up, or you can give up. And it was like I felt God's hands reach down and lift my chin and say, look up. Look up. And I looked up. And I thank God every day that He helped me to look up. So next week, when we come back to Unmasked, I'll share part 2 of the story of what happened when I looked up. I just want you to know, if you're watching with me today, look up. There is hope. You are not alone. Look up. Thanks, guys, for joining.